Hey folks, Dude here. Well, today's thing is going to be, I'm going to have to do a little running around and show you guys, and I'm going to make a little room to make it all fit. Sorry, this is not required for today's recipe. Today's recipe is going to require, well, first off, it's going to require meat. And I'm not talking just a little bit. I'm talking a pretty good amount. That's 5 pounds. Let's see, what's the other guy worth? The other one is, about almost 2 pounds. Okay, so basically I'm going to do a little bit of a mystery thing here for you. I'm going to have to do it in segments, so stand by. Okay, basically we got better part of, 7 pounds of meat here, okay? So we got meat, which goes back into the refrigerator. Big honking Tupperware container, and these things are infamously handy. The next part of the mystery is going to be in the next segment, so you're just going to have to keep guessing what this all means. Good times. Hey folks, so we're back again, and you're now going to figure out what my next part of the component was that makes this thing, make sense. Well, it would be known as the Cylon base ship, also known as dun 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 dun. That's right, this here is the Nesco. You know what, let me take a couple layers off. It's going to make it easier to deal with. The Nesco dehydrator. These are so eminently handy. Okay, if you haven't guessed it by now, I'm making jerky. That's right, I'm going to be making some homemade jerky. And there's some important things you got to remember about jerky. First off, you need to make it your own. Second off, you can make it to any heat level you want. You get to make it flavoring level that you want. You can pretty much do whatever you wish to it because it's going to be yours by the time you're done. And there's a factor you have to come into a realization of. If you start with 7 pounds of meat, you will not have 7 pounds of jerky. What you're doing when you're making jerky is you're making it pretty inhospitable for anything to jump in there and take it over and, make it go bad. By drying it out, you're putting a skin on it so flies can't get into it and lay their eggs. That's the dirty little secret. You're jerking the meat and the flies try to get to it and it's too hard. It's got a skin on it. They can't quite get to it so they can't lay their eggs. Now, if you got bot flies, that's something else entirely, but bot flies don't lay their eggs in jerky. They like live flesh. Also, in jerky, you're applying a lot of flavoring. You're applying a lot of salt. And, okay, this is kind of disgusting, but it's the way things worked back in the good old times. When they made a mummy, they didn't have formaldehyde. What they did is if you look at any of these guys, they were made into people jerky. Yeah, that's right. Mummies were loaded up with spices. They were loaded up with myrrh. They were loaded up with pine tar. They were loaded up with a bunch of other stuff as preservation. So basically, they spiced the crap out of them and made them into people jerky. Yeah, that's why mummies didn't go bad and they look like jerkies, because they are. If you have the desert environment, things dry out, and if you don't give it time to rot by getting it really, really dry, really, really fast, and putting in tons of salt and other spices, it doesn't have time to rot. It becomes jerky. So if you look at a mummy, and the mummy looks like jerky, that's why. It's because he became, he became jerky. Alright, now I'm going to go down to it and take this thing out and do everything along the lines of, spicing and going through the process, and you guys will see it from, backwards and forwards, and from its fruition to its complete and total conclusion to, me numbing a couple pieces for, quality control. Good times. Jerky time. Alright, so we're back to, other jerky stuff. Got my mixing bowl here. Notice, I'm using a stainless steel bowl just for making it easy. Alright, first and foremost, black pepper. You notice there's 2 shades here. One is, your packaged variety. One is fresh, cracked black pepper, simply because the contrast between the two is really good, and packaged black pepper gets weak. All right, so basically about a tablespoon of that. Got about a teaspoon of salt, And there's a reason why I'm not going totally nuts with the salt. It's because when this goes in, it's going to have stuff painted on there, so that's going to add something to it as well. Also, that's sea salt, so that's going to give it some little, esoteric, goodness as well. And it's not an exact thing, but basically you want to go roughly about 1 for 1 for 1 for 1 for 1. Pretty much it's a good starting point, so that's where you go with that one. Paprika, come on. Would I be even a good Hungarian if I forgot the paprika? Oh, no. That's why I tend to go just a little heavy with the paprika. It's a nice mild flavoring. Gives a little bit of color to it. Gives some nice little bit of smoky in the background. Good shiznit. Also, all right, you really can't go wrong with an ass load, and I do mean a positive ass load, of not just onion powder, but also you need to back it up with some other esoteric stuff. So there's a big honking thing of onion powder, and I really, really, really like garlic. So it's definitely getting, well, a bit of garlic powder as well. So that's going to go in there. So I got basically my main flavor profiles in jerky. Am I going to add other stuff to it as well? Absolutely. Good biltong always has coriander in it. So I'm going to go just a little bit crazy with the coriander. And it's nice, mild, kind of almost like a cumin thing in the background. And it's really got a good flavor. I mean, it really, really, really smells good. It has a nice esoteric thing in the background. It really, really adds something to it. You really kind of need to have some of that in the background. Now, I go a little bit esoteric with other stuff as well. A little bit of nutmeg. Just a little, because if you go too crazy, it's going to stand out. It's going to draw attention to itself, and you don't want that. You want little tweaks to the flavor profile, but you don't want it to be like pounding you over the head. Cumin adds some nice little contrast to it, but you don't want to go completely bonkers with it. So 7 pounds of meat, for me to add about a quarter teaspoon or an eighth of a teaspoon is plenty. Just a little bit of heat, nothing too crazy. Just a little bit of heat. All right, that's definitely going to make you notice. I mean, this is some very potent stuff. Trust me, I've used this before. Well, I'll be a little crazy here. I've used this stuff before, and it seems like just a little bit of ink in there, and you're going, wow. Yeah, it really kind of kicks your tail. All right, you know what? I'm going to be going a little wild here. Okay, I got that red pepper in here. This is kick-ass stuff. This is Texas gunpowder that somebody brought back from Texas, and it is nothing but ground jalapenos. Ground jalapenos. You know, jalapenos get such a bad rap. I mean, people mispronounce their name all the time. They call them that huh sound, and they ain't. They're jalapenos. They're good. All right, now that's... You can see it turned a little green on top. That's plenty of the jalapenos. I know, it's a jalapeno. All right, so basically, we now have basic rub. You know what? I think there's other stuff I can throw in there, too. Oh, let's take a quick looky here. Looky. Ooh. All right, a little more contrast, a little Islander influence, not too crazy. Just a little bit of allspice. That's all you need. It's going to stand out. It's going to make it really, really cool. All right, so I'm now getting into this segment a little bit long. I'm going to stop right here and go on to, well, hacking meat. Good times. All right, folks, so basically we got our meat, and, all right, I got sound effects above you because this one's actually fairly easy to see. You can see the grain structures running lengthwise. It's going to be a fairly short segment. You guys obviously know how to cut jerky meat, but I'll do a small example. But first off, here's a quick trick. If you're looking at a piece of meat and you can't figure out the grain, check this out. Just lay your plastic wrap over the meat. Now, give it a little bit of tension, and you'll see the striations of the grain become defined. Quick, easy trick. Works very well for me. That's normally what I do. This is a smaller piece of meat. I'm going to get hacking on it and go on from there. Good times. All right, well, for those people that don't know how to cut meat, I'll show you how to cut meat. Normally what I'll do is I'll use a Santuco just because my choices. You could also use the big honking kitchen knife, anything that's got enough belly to actually give you an easy cut. I really just like my Santuco, so I tend to use it quite a bit. The major problem, though, is it's an older Santuco, so it doesn't have the scallops, which means the meat actually sticks to it. makes it a little harder. There's some instances where they say, sometimes that the better stuff works better. You can see I got very, very easily defined grain structure here. Typically, you want to try to keep your slices under a 1/4 inch. I took that piece of meat, I found out my grain structure, I cut it in half, 2 pieces roughly about 1 inch thick. So let me give you a quick demo here. Basically, you got your meat laid out, and normally what I'll do is I'll eyeball it and just kind of cut straight down, trying to keep the pieces parallel to the other piece of the piece that I'm cutting, and go on from there. Notice very nicely this divine grain structure. It looks good. It's going to be an easy piece of meat to chew on. It is a little thick, but you know what? I tend to run my dehydrator a little long, so it's not going to be an issue. The main thing is you always try to cut it with the grain, because if you don't cut it with the grain, you try to bite into it after you dry it out, it just crumbles up, because all the fibers are lined up like a stack of garden hoses, and it doesn't really work so well. The other thing I can tell you for a fact is if you want to make this even easier to cut, even easier to cut is a very, very old trick. What you can do is you partially freeze the meat. If it's partially frozen, it's going to be it's going to be leathery. It's actually going to be very tough, and it's going to stand up very, very well to you cutting it. You want to make sure you touch it to the absolute minimum because your hands are hot. You'll melt it, refreeze, cut, refreeze, cut. It's too much like work for me. I just simply cut it at room temperature. Read like fridge. Not a problem. I like it like that. Good times.